no less. So I'm going to get a sip of water because I realize exactly
I know.
what the whistle. So yeah. So here we are. I'm super excited to be here for
Nice.
this conversation with you today. I will say that when I heard you speak in a couple of clubhouse rooms, that was really just an amazing first impression. You know, sometimes I think that we underestimate the value of first impressions on social audio apps because it is just a voice of a person that we're hearing. However, there was something about your voice, and there was also something about the things that you were saying that really just resonated with me. So I wanted to just kind of have an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, and
Yeah.
also, you know, a chance for my listeners to get to know you. So I'm going to give you the mic and give you a chance to just introduce yourself by telling me where you're from. Well, of course, your name, and telling me where you're from and what you stand for.
Yes, so my name is Nasir Joachim, and I actually live here in Atlanta now, but I'm originally from Philadelphia, PA, but was raised in Middletown, Delaware, if that makes sense. And what I just
Internet
stand for,
challenge. Yeah, just had a minor
yeah, I was like,
internet challenge. Okay, so we're gonna try that one more time. I just
yeah,
realized I was trying to turn, just fix that. Let me
yeah,
just
because I
fix
was
that.
like, is she frozen?
I know. I was like, dang it. We were just okay.
It keeps going in and out now. Let me make sure it's not mine. No, I'm connecting. Hello?
Standing by. Hold on one second. One
Mhm.
second. Let me just
This was
hold
happening
on.
with me yesterday with my
Oh my
weather.
God. It's so crazy. I'm like, this is like this is like the fourth meeting I've had to do, not had to do today, but okay, I think we are good. Let me make sure. Okay, we're good to go. So we're going to try that again too. I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself to the audience by sharing your name, where you're from, and what you stand for.
Yes, so my name is Nasir Joachim, and I live here in Atlanta, Georgia now, but I'm originally from Philadelphia, PA, but was raised in Delaware, Middletown, Delaware, because that's where I went to a little bit of middle school, all of high school, and then a little bit of college. And then after that, then I moved here to Atlanta. But what I stand for is really just diversity, really diversity and empowering yourself, because it's 2021 and I believe in, if you're not given opportunity, then you make your own. So that's really what I stand for.
I love that. I love that. It's so interesting that you say diversity. I just got back yesterday from a conference with this company called Mind Body. It's like the, you know, go-to platform that a lot of wellness and fitness and salon business owners use to kind of run their platform. They do, you know, CRM and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The number one theme, I would say, of this year's conference is diversity, equity, and inclusion, or inclusivity. And it's so interesting how it's on the table, it's managing to make its way through conversation, but I
Yeah.
don't know that a lot of people really understand exactly what diversity means. So could you tell us what your definition of diversity means and what it looks like for you?
Yeah, diversity for me is really just getting the opinions of multiple different kinds of people. So that can be gender, that can be sexual orientation, that can be the most important, race. So diversity for me is just not taking just one type of person's opinion for something or fact for something, and getting multiple different people's opinion. And that's something that I truly stand for. And even on Clubhouse, like all of my stages, I have multiple types of people, from women to men to white women, black women, Latino women. So it's just really just incorporating multiple opinions and not just looking the same way.
Yeah, I like that. I think diversity it's one of those words that has very diverse, you know, definitions. I think
Yeah.
sometimes people say diversity and they mean like we want to include black folks, or they say diversity and they mean we want to include queer folks, and it's like they say diversity, we want to include women. It's like, okay, so maybe we could just include all of the above, would be really
Yeah.
great. And we would truly be diverse, you know, at that point.
Exactly.
You know, we're not like singling anybody out, but it's really like open to everyone. So
Yeah.
yeah, one of the speakers that was at this conference that I went to is this woman who's an activist. She's an actress, Jamila Jamil, who is super amazing. I absolutely love her. She's a Pakistani American immigrant and she's a queer woman and she's just like a badass and takes diversity to like an entirely different level when she talks about just the inclusivity that relates to, like you said, people's race and gender and sexual orientation, but also like ableism and ageism and like all the other isms that we often
Yeah.
ignore. So the conversation of diversity, I think, is it's one of those topics that can be uncomfortable for some people, typically those who are not practicing it.
Yeah.
It seems to be
Exactly.
uncomfortable for them. The rest of us are like, we've been talking about this, so it's time.
Exactly.
It's time. So, can you tell me a little bit more about what brought you to Atlanta? Like, how did you arrive there, and what's been your experience in the ATL?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question that surprisingly, with the amount of podcasts I've done so far, nobody's asked me that question. And because it roots in a lot of stuff. So me moving to Atlanta actually happened right after my dad gave me the ultimatum of either, go to counseling for me being gay or for me to get out. And because to this day, he still thinks that I chose to rather than him actually kicking me out. But to each his own. Delusional comes in many different forms. So
Delusional is very diverse.
exactly. So after that, I packed up all my stuff and I went to a old best friend's house. So I was no longer friends with her anymore, but her mom really loved me. So then they didn't have the best relationship already, and she was like at her like friend's house all the time, basically moved in there. So I moved into their house and moved into her room. And yeah, it was a whole situation, child. I was there for about like, I think like 8, 9 months. And I saw her one time, and her and I actually stopped talking for a while because we got into some beef where like we stopped talking to one friend and she was talking crap about her. And then when I went to that friend and we made up and stuff like that, she tried to act like she never did anything. So that's kind of like how we had our falling out. And then that the first time of me seeing her was when I was already moved into her room and I walked into the house when I came home from work and she was sitting on the couch. So then we talked and we talked about like things and like she basically said she forgives, but she's the fakest person I've ever met in my entire life. And then that was the last time I actually saw her because she never even came back to the house like whatsoever
Oh,
after that.
wow.
Which, yeah, child, it was that family was weird, but I'm very grateful that they were able to give me, a home while I had to, was able to find one. Child, they had chickens in the backyard. They had they had like 2 pigs. They had 3 cats, a dog. Yeah, it was a lot for me. Um, so after that, so the main reason why they let me stay at the house was because I really wanted to finish school because I was in college at the time. And when I realized that I was going to have to end up paying for that myself, I said, oh no, deuces. um, and I actually applied to a school in New York, but I didn't get in because I didn't go to my spring semester classes because I couldn't afford to go to
Okay.
spring semester because my dad paid for the first semester. And I
Okay.
did really well my first semester, but then they were like, so where's the second semester? And I'm like, so I'm actually not in college right now. And I was hoping on like, my dancing abilities and stuff like that. I was going to at least be able to get some type of scholarship. But I didn't even make it past the first round, child, because they said, you ain't even got the second semester grades. Like, where's the rest of that? So it was like shortly after that, I got a letter basically saying I was not eligible. So fast forward to basically the last few months of me living there, they were like, well, what are you planning on doing? Because like we were thinking that you're, going to school, but it seems like you're working full time. And then I explained, and then I ended up just, choking it up and saying, let me actually reach out to, no, I think no, I reached out to her actually because my mom may never reach out to me for nothing. So I reached out to my mom, and at that time, her and I weren't talking. So I was not
Okay.
talking to neither one of my parents.
Neither parent.
And so I talked to her, told her about the situation. She's like, yeah, I assumed that happened because she saw something on Facebook and yada yada. Basically saw that like I was out like on Facebook, and she knew that with my dad and the type of person he is, she knew what probably happened. So
Right.
then her and I, we got on decent terms again. And for anybody that's listening, I'm using quotes for a lot of things because, These people are interesting. So I moved to Atlanta to kind of try to build that relationship with my mom up again, because I'm a type of person that, even though everything in the past was in the past, I now was trying to, get off on a better start. So
Right.
so I moved in with her, and I was only really there for about like 3 months before her and I got into an argument, of course. And I cursed her out, she cursed me out, and then I just end up basically leaving from there. And I was evidently homeless. I moved in with a friend at the time. Her name starts with an M. I'm not going to say exactly who she is, but her name starts with an M. And I moved in with her, and
Mhm.
then I was sleeping on her floor for a while, and I actually had a boyfriend that lived in Tennessee. And then I ended up breaking up with him at literally all around the same time as me getting kicked out from my mom, me breaking up with him because I didn't feel like I had any support from him. Like there was
Right.
no empathy there whatsoever. So I broke up with him because child know my worth. And then so I was sleeping on her floor for a while. And then she actually got evicted from her apartment because she couldn't afford to even live there. And I wasn't paying her anything because I can barely afford to even find a place.
Right.
So at the time, I actually had a manager, and he was like my saving grace at that moment. His name is Peter, and he was my general manager at a hotel, and we were opening the hotel. It was my very first hotel here in Atlanta.
Mhm.
I worked at one right before I left Delaware, and I realized I really liked hotels.
Mhm.
So I got hired there, and he really liked me right off the bat. Like in the interview, he was like, "You remind me so much of myself, like when I was like your age, like
Mhm.
ambitious, out, getting things done, like all of that kind of stuff." So when I told him what was happening, he talked to another GM at our sister property, and they were able to give me a room for her and I a room for free for 2 weeks. But I only needed it for a week because I ended
Mhm.
up finding student housing. That's a whole situation and a whole nother story.
Mhm.
I ended up moving in student housing in the same exact complex that she got evicted from.
Oh, wow. What are the odds?
In the same exact complex because everything was bundled, like utilities,
Yeah.
rent and things, and everything was furnished. Like I barely had any money to furnish myself, so that was the smartest option for me to go to at that moment. So yeah, and then from there, that's where I got most of my stability living there because my rent was only about $700 a month, and it
Okay.
included everything. So
Mhm.
I was able to really get on my feet working at the hotel because I was getting paid decently. I was working overtime a lot of the time because I was a very reliable employee. And then I ended up making my way up. And I actually ended up being one of the youngest AGMs to work for Marriott at only 21. And I made it there within 3 years. And I've been able to travel the US to help different hotels across the US with doing task force as well. So I definitely had a lot of struggles being here in Atlanta, but it taught me a lot about myself. I came here with one objective,
Mhm.
and I got a bunch of other ones.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that so openly. And there's so many parts of your story that I think are so relatable to a lot of other folks, especially a lot of queer folks, especially a lot of queer Black men in
Yeah,
particular. And the things that queer Black men experience in their families, particularly with their relationships with their parents. And when we think about being displaced and we think about being homeless or we think about being houseless or we think about struggle, it's like so many of us have gone through that at different stages. I came out when I was 29 years old. I had already been married, already had a child, and knew when I got married to a man that I did not need to get married to him. It was a shotgun wedding. It was oh shit, you broke all the rules of the church, all the rules. So we're gonna try to shove it under a corner. If y'all just hurry up and get married, maybe nobody will know. And then within the third year of marriage, I was like, I gotta get out. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go. I gotta pick up my kid and I just have to go.
yeah,
And there was so much shame, there was so much displacement, there was so much struggle, there was so much that I had to go through. And even when I look back at it now, I mean, it's damn near, 15 years ago, almost 18 years ago, I know that I couldn't keep pretending and I couldn't
yeah,
keep hiding and I couldn't keep playing the role. I couldn't keep acting. And even if it meant that I had to sacrifice those relationships, specifically with my parents at the time,
yeah.
it was a necessary function of me becoming the person that I am today. And
Yeah, and
so,
that's
yeah, go ahead.
exactly like when it came to my dad with that ultimatum that he still thinks that he never kicked me out. It was that like I was out in my high school, actually. I came out in sophomore year of my high school.
Okay.
So everybody there knew. I actually had a bunch of drama with like my ex-girlfriend, where my old therapist made me actually tell my ex-girlfriend that I was gay, and also made me tell her that Courtney and Kamara knew about it as well. Yeah, that created a lot of drama our sophomore year, and actually gave me like PTSD with like therapists, because then she threatened to like, then she started blaming her bad grades like on me being gay, and like it took a toll on her. I said, sis, you had bad grades before I came out, so don't
Be
try to
like, I ain't got nothing to do with that.
and
Right.
it was just a whole ordeal at my school that my parents actually never knew about. I was very good at hiding up a lot of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
until it came to a time where like my school actually got involved one time, because my teacher then called my house, like my dad, and basically it was a Black teacher,
Right.
basically saying like I'm friends with more of like the females and things like that, bitching my
Okay.
business for no fucking reason. And then that sparked up a conversation. So yeah, child, it's I was just tired of playing games, and I was tired of pretending, and I was tired of being a strong, confident person like at school, and being a person that people actually looked up to at school, and then going home. And then I was actually very quiet at home, because, and I think that's also a lot with gay people as well, is that we're always the quiet ones. It's because it's like, if we talk, then every opportunity we have to talk is an opportunity for somebody to out us, I guess. So we kind
Yeah.
of just like stay, to ourselves, and we become our own best friend. And that's also another reason why I think a lot of, straight people are intimidated by LGBT, is because we become our own best friends. So therefore we understand and know ourselves better than anyone else can. And when you understand yourself and you're confident in yourself, you are a absolute force to be reckoned with. And I think that's
Right.
what a lot of people that, you know, a lot of people do see that. And I think that plays a big part in why people are afraid of the LGBT community as well.
Yeah.
But they
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, like part of our culture is just fucking just owning the stage, owning the space, taking up all the space, being the most fabulous, being the most
yeah,
seen, being just the loudest presence, and I think like you said, it is very intimidating. And I think, for me, I, am older. I did graduate from high school in the 90s, and I went from California to North Carolina to go to an HBCU because we don't have none of them in California. So I had to go to the South, and I went to the South. And as soon as I got to campus, I had like a complete transformation. I changed my hair, changed my clothing, I changed my look because I was away from home. I got to
yeah,
create a new identity for myself. I created a new name or a nickname for myself. At the time, I built an entire community. But then when I came home at Christmas, I had to put all that away.
all that.
Oh, I'd tuck it all away and go back into like the Keyshawn that my family knows. And then same thing when I went back to campus, it was like coming out and going in, coming out and going in
Yeah,
constantly. And it was easier, so to speak, because I was so far away from my family. So then I started coming home less and less because
yeah,
I didn't want to have to do that switch
yeah,
every single
exactly.
time. And then time went by where I didn't come home for a couple of years. So that constant change and that constant transition can be so draining, and it can be so stressful. And I love my parents, and we have a much better relationship now than we did a long time ago, but it was a journey to get there, and it was really more about me forgiving them
Yeah.
versus anything else. It was me being able to be like, you are just a man and you are just a woman, and I have to see you as that and take you off this pedestal and
Yes.
see you as
No.
people.
Now, Doctor. I have somebody, a good friend named Dr. Jill. Her book is actually around here somewhere. Actually, it's literally right here. Her name is Dr. Jill.
Okay.
I actually met her on Clubhouse as well, and her and I went to actually lunch here in Atlanta with the other group of people from Clubhouse and my boyfriend as well, and we talked there for like hours. We were there for like 4 hours, and one of the things that she said to me actually was, when you actually start looking at your parents as just people, because she knows my heart, she knows who I am as a person. Like I care about people. Like I want to see people do good, and I want to see people, live a happy life.
Mhm.
And she said, when you start to look at them as just people rather than your mom or your dad, then you'll have more, rather than resentment, you'll have gratitude, and you'll want to send positivity their way. And
Right.
that was the moment that clicked in my brain. And I was like, you know what? You are so right about that. You are so right. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Oh yeah, it was also helpful for me once I became a parent, and once my son reach like teenage years, because from the time that he was born until the time that he was almost 10 years old, I didn't really have a lot of contact with my parents. He had contact, he would go see, his grandparents, but we didn't really have a lot of communication. And
Yeah.
then once I started seeing his impression of me, I'm like, oh, but I'm just a woman. I'm just trying to hold it together. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just one person. There was a
Yeah.
moment, like you said, where it clicked, and in conversation with an amazing therapist where it clicked. And I was like, oh, y'all
Yeah.
were only 19 when you became parents. You're
Yeah.
still, I mean, you got stages in your life and you have your own trauma and your own
Yeah.
stuff that you haven't even dealt with yet. So, okay, that doesn't mean that your behaviors are acceptable.
Yeah.
However, I can maybe lower my expectations a little bit of you being superheroes, because you're clearly not, and
Yeah.
kind of see you as just people. And it made a huge, huge difference.
You
Huge.
know, it's funny. It's funny that you also said that too, because like as I was growing up, that's like so for a while, I hated my mom. Like I used to talk crap about her on Facebook. Like this was at because so to give a backstory, like I was abused by my mom for years, mentally, physically, emotionally. And it was one day that the school actually, saw marks on my body, and I
Mhm.
ended up going into the system, not for like long, basically just for holding into my court date. So that, my dad, my grandparents, they all like flew down here for the court date and everything. And so then the court ruled for me to move with my dad, and that's how I ended up in Delaware. Because my mom, she moved here to Atlanta. I was actually in Atlanta for a year before then I moved out of Atlanta and went to Delaware. And she's been here kind of ever since. She's moved around with her ex-husband. But the point is that shoot, I forgot what the point of I was getting to. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, here goes the point. Sorry. Is I moved to Delaware with my dad, and so that was like middle school. It was like seventh grade, eighth grade, and those 2 years, like I would talk crap about my mom all over on Facebook, and then like like she would then call my dad and say, "Get your son," like yada yada, all this other stuff. So
Mhm.
as I gotten older, I started to like forgive her and things like that. Like I just moved past it because I had that same thought process. You didn't have the best example as for your mom, because her and her mom used to go at it like
Right.
really, really bad. And so I made that excuse for her. But then as I got even older, and then I even moved in with her, because that was like years.
Mhm.
We talked on and off for so much. Like at this point, when I moved in with her, I barely even know her as a person. She barely knows me as a person. And
Right.
that's also a thing that a lot of parents, they think that they know their kids. And it's like, no, just because you have me, sis, does not mean that you know the Nasir today. And
Right.
that also played a big part in why her and I butt a lot of heads when we moved in, because she still had a lot of that resentment from me
Mhm.
getting her sent to jail and all of that stuff.
Right.
And then she wants to act like that she didn't have that resentment, but sis, we know that you
We
do.
know that it's there.
And
Right.
then, yeah, and then so it was just like, as now at that point I'm like 19, so I'm
Mhm.
like, no, this has nothing to do with what you had like growing up. This has everything to do with you not taking responsibility for you as an individual, and you thinking that you're a saint. And no, in actuality you're not. You like to point fingers at everyone else,
Mhm.
but you don't actually like to look in the mirror and say, what did I do wrong as a
Right.
parent? And it speaks volumes to both of them,
Yeah.
because of the arguments up. Because my mom, I don't have an issue. The issue isn't because I'm gay. The issue is just because she's psycho, and she doesn't like to take responsibility for herself. So that's and then my dad, it has everything to do with me being gay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I grew up in a household. I'm the oldest of five children. My parents have been together since they were 15 years old. They had me at 19. My dad battled drug addiction for the majority of my childhood, and my mom was super duper codependent throughout that process. So, dealing with a toxic environment, growing up in a toxic household, I'm like surprised that I've made it out alive. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
I know.
so, there was so much resentment, there was so much anger just from that. And then, of course, struggling with sexuality, struggling with identity. Who am I? Who am I supposed to be? Struggling with an overly Christian household and
Yeah.
damn near cultish Christian, type environment. And then leaving home and experiencing just like a taste of freedom and a taste of like who I actually could be, returning with that sense of empowerment. And then coming out at the same time, my family, their heads spun. They didn't know what the hell to do. They were like,
Exactly.
who are you? You're talking up, you're talking back, and you're out. You cut your hair, you got a baby, but you're getting divorced. And what you got? What? So at
Yeah.
the time, I was like, and so what? Deal with it. You know what I mean? Over time, you know what I'm saying? I've calmed, a bit, but I also had to work through my own stuff. So recognizing like everybody's working through their stuff and knowing that everybody's working at a different pace. And then some people aren't doing the work, which is a fact. Everybody's not doing the work. And
Yeah.
you can start to see who's doing the work and who's not. And
Not-
those who aren't, you're kind of like, I have to love you from a distance
Yeah.
because I
And
can't let you in.
and that's it. That's it right there. For so long, I've been like trying, like for instance, with my dad, I don't talk to him anymore, as of right now, because it's just like I'm at the point in my life to where I'm building my business and I'm building my life, and I don't have time to waste my time on toxic people. I don't care who you are, mom, dad, sister, brother, uncle, cousin, like all of
Nobody
y'all.
gets a pass.
Like I don't have time for it. And
Right.
it's like with my dad, like the last like time that him and I talked, well, the last argument him and I got into, like
Hmm.
he basically said that, the reason why he doesn't invite me to a lot of things is because he is still uncomfortable with, who I am, and like because I'm like extra flamboyant and yada yada yada. And it's just like, it did hurt my feelings for a little while.
Of course.
But the thing is like at the end of the day,
Hmm.
when now you circle back, when I do build my empire, I'm charging you double. And the thing
I
is,
actually might have to put you on a waiting list, sir.
and
Right.
we got into a big argument because I was like, nobody's ever worried about Nasir. Like, when is somebody actually going to worry about me? Y'all over here, doing real estate investment and, buying trucks, getting into the trucking industry. But
Mhm.
when is somebody actually going to, watch out for Nasir? So then he was like, that he would help me with starting a business. So, get together, a
Mhm.
pitch or whatnot.
Mhm.
Because I basically like was yelling at him because I'm like, I can't ever get anything started for myself because something always happens. Friend got evicted, or I lost a job, or a car got repoed, or whatever the case is. So it's like I feel like I can never get anything started whenever I want to.
Right.
So then he was like, you know what, put together like a presentation, and then like he'll help invest money into my business. So I put together everything, I put together a mock website, a full presentation, like I'm extra, so therefore everything I do is going to be extra, from my clothes to how I speak to
Yes.
what I present.
Yes.
It's like it's not just situational. So I made sure it was to the T. He was like, "Oh, like I'm really, really impressed," and I was like, "You're impressed because you don't know me. This would be a regular thing if you actually knew me." But
Right.
that's besides the fact. So I asked him for 15,000. I knew that he was going to say 10,000 because I know him.
Okay.
So I asked for 15. He's like, I can give you 10 to help you like start your business. Guess how much money I've gotten from that?
No, no, no monies.
About $2,000
About
of
okay.
yeah.
He's on a
And
long-term payment plan. Is that what it is?
exactly, and have barely even like really heard from him from it. And then,
Wow.
it's just it took a big hit from my business because I did get laid off from a job.
Mhm.
And then when I'm like trying to like basically like, okay, so now I need more help,
Right.
nowhere to be found. But he texted me on my birthday, happy birthday. But he does that to make it seem like that he's still, their parent. But bitch, who
Right.
the hell is you fooling? Not me.
It's you're like, I'm paying attention. I'm on the other side.
Yeah.
It's true
I
because
just said thanks and moved on about my day. And then they
right.
sent me like a measly $200. And then my stepmom was like, "Did you get the 200?" I was like, "Oh no, there's something wrong with my Zelle, but child, don't worry about it. I'm making a lot more money than that now. I don't need you."
You're like, it's okay. Thank you for the donation, but I'm good.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this business. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing and how you're supporting people, how you're showing up, because I want to know more for sure.
Yeah. So with Royalty Ads, we're a marketing and branding agency. We actually added the branding part because of Clubhouse, because so much of my audience was like asking me about personal branding. And it's been a thing that has been in my life because I've been signed to a talent agency. So I've been a model, actor, and things like that. I've worked with like Queen Latifah, Keke Palmer, Stevie Boy at one point. So it's like personal branding has kind of been in my life, from the very beginning. Like even one of my old best friends, his dad used to be Tyga's manager, and
Okay.
we all lived in like the same neighborhood and everything. So it's like it's always been a thing that has
Like
been
just
in my life.
around.
So I was like, you know what, let me just add that in there, to my business because, listening to your audience. So we're a
Right.
marketing and branding agency. I actually started because I got laid off from the hotel industry. And I
Okay.
was already doing marketing for hotels with being an AGM.
Hmm.
And so I was like, you know what? Let me just move this over into a business because I took all those skills that I, learned from being in hotels because I'm a person that I pay attention to the structure of a business.
Yep.
And I've worked in almost every single industry. I've worked for Amazon at one point. I've worked at a gas station. I've worked at retail. I have not worked at a bank actually. I've worked in hotels. I've worked in almost every industry, but I've also worked at Starbucks as well. And I'm a person that I pay to how they make experience for their customers and the structure of their business. And I've taken all of those skills and all of those things that I've learned because once again, both parents are entrepreneurs, but for some reason, they taught me nothing about business. Um, so I took all those skills and I put them basically into my business. And because I
Right.
learned accounting from working for Marriott, I've learned how to manage people. I've managed 150 employees at one time. I've learned how to do budgets. I've learned how, so basically took all that, made it into a business, and then went back and said, hey, I'm doing like marketing. And I started marketing for a few franchises because people don't realize you have the brand Marriott, IHG, Hilton, but there's franchises that are underneath that basically fend for themselves. So
Right.
you have to do your own marketing, you do your own structure, and yeah. So it's your responsibility to do all of that. Marriott has nothing to do with
To
this.
do
So
with it.
I
Right.
started working with some franchises, but then I ran into the issue of no one can get employees. So then they basically had to cut ties with me. And that was also around the time where I lost my job because I went into leasing for a little bit to basically try to, get some money while I can, start this business up.
Right.
Got laid off there because I couldn't take that child. I ended up cursing out my manager because she was not, I stepped down to an hourly position. So therefore I still had a manager mindset.
Of course.
So the way that she was running the office, I'm like, this is not how you do it. So
Right.
like her and I would butt heads all the time. And I would try to help her because I'm like, I understand where you're coming from. I used to be a manager. I get it.
I get it.
So her and
Right.
I connected on a lot of levels, but we also disconnected on a lot of levels. And one day she had an attitude for whatever reason, and she really pissed me off because I literally got all of the move-ins for that place, all of them. I had another leasing person and there was an assistant there. They
Wow.
didn't get any move-ins. She was there for like 2 months and still got no move-ins. I think I got like 12 in 1 month. And
Like
she still
I'm
has
responsible for everybody
this
who lives here
entire
right now.
motherfucking
This is
office right
actually
here.
my complex. It's I run this.
Seriously, like literally. And then she would come to me and be like, I noticed that you haven't been doing as much work. That's because there's 2 other heifers in here. Now them bitches can do it. And it was one day that she called me real and she got an attitude. And I cursed her out. I said, bitch, you can do it your motherfucking self. And
Right.
I left and sorry for the cursing.
Oh no,
But
it's fine. You're like, this is my
I,
last day. Here's my
I
notice.
was like, you know what? I'm out. And then they ended up calling me back and saying, like you're done and yada yada yada. And I gave because the regional and HR was on the phone. I let them have it too.
Wow.
Basically letting them know what was going on in the office because I actually sent a long list, a long letter to the regional as well because they would send people to the property that worked for the management company. Then people will go back and say like they were doing this, this, and that. Like somebody was complaining because I was looking up stuff for a vacation because sis, I did all of my move-ins and
I'm
I'm
done
going
for
on
the day.
vacation soon. So I
Yeah.
was looking up stuff. I didn't know that was a fucking crime, but you know, none of my business. So I sent her basically a long thing, basically reading her to fill.
Okay.
But it was all accurate and I came with the receipts as well because
I
that's
love
the type of
it.
person that I am. But
Like
anyway,
as per page 7 of this enclosed dissertation email where you are
yes, like
refer to paragraph 3 where I write.
like I screenshotted it. I like literally took it. I printed it out too because I keep records for HR too. I printed it out, took a picture of it, sent it to my boyfriend. He was like, I've never seen anybody read someone so professionally in the nicest way, but bitchiest way possible. Like that. So anyway, so I got laid off from there and all of that was happening at the same time. So I got laid off, lost all my clients. It was like, so what do I do
I
now?
do.
So
Right.
then that's when I started to go into like personal branding and then I created a guide from it. And then I got some, an email list built up about email list of 500 people from that guide.
Mhm.
And then people were like, reels, 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 like your reels are amazing. And that was something that was just came natural to me. So I was like, I didn't think was an issue. I've been editing since Microsoft Movie Maker, and then stepped it up to iMovie when the iPhones came out. And then I stepped it up to what I have now, which is Final Cut Pro. So, I thought that was something that was natural to me. So then I created, reels, and then that has been a hit with people. And it's been such a great way for me to start building community, because I'm really focusing on building my personal brand. And with Clubhouse, giving me the opportunities that I have, I just got hired as a speaker, and I'm speaking with actually somebody big on Clubhouse as well, Glenn. He's the other guest speaker for the Entrepreneur Summit that we're hosting with AARP, actually. And it's a great start for me, starting with my speaking, because one, it sets the bar for my rate, because it's very high. And it also positions me very well because of the other person that I'm speaking with as well. So I've taken this business, and there's been a lot of ups and downs, but as an entrepreneur, you have to understand how to pivot. And that's one thing that I realized when it comes to entrepreneurship, there is no such thing as failure. All it is lesson, and how you learn from that lesson, and then, change directions and move forward.
I love that. I love that. There's no
I
such
know
thing.
that was all over the place. So I'm
No,
so
that was so no, it's so good. And this is why, like, I love having conversations with people where they're able to share parts of their story, because I would say there's so many people that are thinking about entrepreneurship, or thinking about starting their own business, or at a job where they're not
yeah.
being served, where they're not being taken care of. And they're like, I don't even know where to begin. And there are challenges like finding seed money, finding startup money, coming up with a business model, not sure where to start. When you were talking about the jobs you have, like I tell people all the time, like if I ever gave somebody my actual resume from starting to work at age 15 up until age 33,
It will be as long as the
it would
Appalachian
be as
Mountains.
I'm saying it would have tabs and all kind of sections and shit on it, because I started working in 15. And I think, like you said, when you have had the opportunity to be able to work in so many different fields, if you're paying attention, you're so prepared for entrepreneurship. It's not even funny.
And
More so than someone who's in the classroom. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing that so many people with these 9 to 5s are not doing. They're just sitting here complaining about their 9 to 5. Look at how how you are making the money for somebody. You are literally the direct person making that person that is the entrepreneur money. So look at what checklists have they given you?
Right.
What structures do they make you do every day? What other positions are there? I've worked my way up from a front desk agent all the way to an assistant general manager in Marriott. So I know the structure from the front desk all the way up to the top. Right. I've worked closely with HR, regional, so I know how a business is ran. But the hard part was, okay, but how do you start a business? That was the only area that I did not know. So it was me just connecting and networking all over Clubhouse. Now I have a network of people that I didn't even think I could do. You know what I mean? Like for instance, Lejay, he's the global strategist of the Wanda Group, which is a 13 industry conglomerate. So it's like, I was literally on a phone with him for an hour and a half with him just giving me advice on business. And he's actually the reason why I started my webinar with Reels. Because he was like, do that. He's like, bam, 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 bam. And I have so many people that now believe in me that like, I didn't even think was possible, because I come from a family that didn't necessarily believe in me, even though I did so much to be like, I'd done so much for them to be proud of, but I don't remember ever hearing anyone in my family saying that they're proud of me. And it's like, to also take it back to the jobs, it's like within the LGBT community, people don't realize that the reason why we've had so many jobs is because we have to in order to survive. And we then ended up in jobs to where it's a toxic working environment, and then we like have to go, or we get fired for whatever reason. And then people think that I've been fired from like about 7 jobs, and it's been either because of my age, so people are intimidated by me, because remember, I started managing at 18. So I've had people that complain about me to the manager saying I'm doing this and that, which was unfalse and untrue. And I've been fired for speaking up, and I've been fired for losing my temper, because I know how things are ran, and I put people in their place. But at the end of the day, it just makes you stronger. It really does.
It so does. And I mean, like I started working when I was 15 years old, but before I was old enough to get a work permit, I worked for my aunt. She was the first entrepreneur that I really had a chance to work with closely in my family. And I learned basic stuff about customer service, but then also didn't realize how much game she was giving me about bookkeeping, about scheduling,
Yeah.
about structure, about vetting clients. I'm 15 years old answering phones, talking to
Yeah.
people about $300,000-$400,000 home loans. I don't even know what the hell it is, but I'm learning it. You know what I'm saying? So when I
Yeah.
go into a work environment, when I got a little bit older and got my first job, out of college, and I'm recognizing that the person who's running the show doesn't know shit about a lot of things, but I'm supposed to report to you. But you don't really, yeah, no, I can't do that. Like it just didn't
Exactly.
sit right, with me. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And then, like you said, specifically for people in the LGBTQ plus community, there's so many spaces where we're just not welcomed. They don't make room for us, or they expect us to
And then
conform.
add block on top of that, sis.
Hello. You know what I mean? There's been plenty of times where I've had to, oh, Keyshawn, can we call you into the office to have a conversation with you about fill in the blank? Your
Yeah.
clothing, your hair, your attitude, your this, your that.
Oh
To
yeah, the last job that I worked at, they had an issue with my clothing because it was too tight, and I basically talked to the manager and I like ended up actually crying in the office because it's like I face that so much when it comes from my parents to my work environment to that. So that was like it just like took me back to like those times, you
those
know what I mean?
times. Heck yeah.
And it was just like,
Oh.
yeah, my clothing is what it is, unless you're gonna provide me with some new pants. I mean,
These are the pants that I'll be
sorry
wearing.
that you built like a loaf of bread and you can't wear these pants like I can, honey, but that ain't my fault.
Can't take responsibility for the lack of curvature in your butt. Sorry.
Exactly.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit. This is the part of the podcast where I like to call it complete the sentence, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I already asked you on your pre-podcast questionnaire. So we're going to start with, if you could reside anywhere in the world, where would you live and why?
I really don't have like one set place to be honest. Like my boyfriend and I, we are both very spontaneous people. I'm a Leo, he's a Pisces. So we're very much like we don't like, for instance, like with us being in Atlanta now, we're like thinking about, okay, how can we, travel? We're wanting to actually get a van and convert it and travel like around like the US and stuff like that. So I really, really do not have one designated place. But if I like absolutely have to, I would actually choose. I really don't know. I really don't. But somewhere that just has water because I'm like a fish. I actually one of my favorite sports was swimming. I played 5 sports throughout my life, and one of my favorite was swimming. And I'm like a fish. Like I've always been like that. I love being in water. It just makes me like happy to like hear waterfalls and just hear water. So somewhere that has water, because
Okay.
here in Georgia, I have to drive all the way to Savannah to get to some water. So
I was gonna say, yeah, where's the closest water from Atlanta? You had to go to Savannah. Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
I feel you. Yeah, I'm a water baby too. I'm a Cancer. I'm also from Southern California, and I
Oh,
can.
you a Cancer. Oh, I gotta hang up.
Bye. That's the end of the conversation, y'all. I'm
my,
gonna save that
my
to the
mom is
end.
a Cancer. That's why I'm like, oh.
It's so funny. It's so funny because I have a son. He'll be 20 years old in October, and he was always encouraged. I mean, I did my best to encourage him to be honest and to be open, and we would have feedback conversations where I would sit him down and we'd have our little check-ins, and he would
Yeah.
say some things and I had to just kind of like, okay, all right, I did ask you to tell me the truth, so I guess I can't be in my feelings right now.
Yeah.
And I recognize that a lot of Cancer moms didn't do that, because they didn't create the space for that open expression, but that's always been
Yeah.
so valuable to me. And now that he's a young adult, I'm so grateful because now he comes to me with his stuff,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's like friendships or relationships or, work related stuff. And I feel like I created that safe space for him. So yeah, so I get it. But all Cancer moms are not built like this one. So I understand.
Not at all. Which I'm so happy that that's you realize that, you know what I mean? And I wish that my parents were able to do that too. But once again, delusional comes in many forms.
It does. It does. It does. So next question I have for you is, if you woke up tomorrow morning and I don't know what's in your bank account today, but if you woke up tomorrow morning with an extra 100 million in your account, what is the first thing you would do?
I would actually build a school. So what has really helped me in my life for where I am now is the amount of extracurriculars that I've done within my life. Because I used to do everything because I didn't want to be home. So the more that I could be out of the house, the better. So I took up swimming, football, track, graphic design. I was editor-in-chief of Yearbook. I did musicals. I did stage crew at one point. Like, so I really want to build a school to teach, kids about all of these types of things and
Mhm.
stuff like that, because I really feel like the extracurriculars that I've done in my life has really built me to the person that I am today.
Yep.
Because I learned how to do graphic design back then. I was in Business Professionals of America, so I've been a professional since I was 12. So it's like,
I
you
was
know,
made for this. I was built
yeah,
for this. Damn it.
exactly. And I think that's what really gives, like, for instance, my boyfriend, he struggles now a little bit to find what makes him happy because he didn't grow up having all of those things. Like, I went to a decent school enough in Delaware, which I'm very grateful for my dad being able to, put me in a school system to where, like, we had almost everything you can think of. So it's like, we literally had a multi-million-dollar barn attached to our school that had cows and everything in it,
Wow.
because the agricultural program they would work on, do that kind of stuff. But I would say definitely a school to teach kids about stuff like
I love
about
that.
musical theater, business, agriculture, things like that.
Right, like to prepare the next generation of entrepreneurs, essentially.
Yeah.
Because no, I was in. It's I swear some of the things I'm like, so did we live the same life? Because same year I was that student who, because I was in a toxic household, I was the one who was at school early and went home late. I was in every
Yeah.
club, I was in every activity, student government, all the creative stuff, everything I could possibly do, and didn't realize that it was really preparing me, for who I am today. So it made a huge, huge difference. So the last question I have for you on this particular part is what flaws would you be okay with in a romantic partner?
What flaws?
You're like none, zero. I need perfection. No.
I know I'm trying. Well, I was, because when you asked me that, because I'm in a relationship, I then referred to like my boyfriend. I'm like, what flaw does he have that I'm okay with?
Right. You're like, I haven't left. So I can he must have some things that I'm okay with.
you know, I would say being emotional, because he is a very, very emotional person. Once again, he's a Pisces. You know how
Pisces.
you water signs are. And he's a very emotional person. But as long as you're emotional, you're able to actually talk about it and be able to see both sides. Because that's the thing. Like, for instance, my mom is a very emotional person if she wants to admit it or not, along with my dad as well, if they want to admit it or not. But the thing is, we were never actually able to openly talk about things. So that's why
Right.
nothing was able to ever get really solved.
Right.
Where like in my relationship, yes, sometimes it could be like pulling teeth,
Mhm.
but we always end up coming to a ground to where he's like, you know what, you're right. Like
Right.
I was overreacting about this, or overreacting about that.
Right. No, that's real. And being in touch with your emotions is one thing. Being able to express your emotions is something very different. So yeah, I feel you on that. So I like to do something called complete the sentence. So I'm gonna throw some sentence prompts at you and you can complete them however you'd like. The
Mhm.
first is I am happiest when.
I am dancing because I'm actually a trained dancer as well. Well, not fully trained, which is another thing. Being on this podcast, this is the most I've actually talked about my story. Like, I've talked about my story quite often on a few podcasts, but this is the most in depth that like I've gotten. So I apologize if it's all over the place.
Don't apologize. That's my favorite part of hosting a podcast. I get to hear
Yeah.
people's stories. Yes. Yes.
Exactly. And dancing is something that I love to do. And I'm mainly a self-taught dancer because my dad never put me in dancing because, that was gay. So a lot of like my dancing that I've learned was just watching TV and me practicing in my living room in the middle of the night with headphones in, like practicing Alice Cones in our front, because we had like a living room and then a family room.
Mhm.
And I'm just in there practicing Alice Cones in the in the living room. But I didn't actually start dancing training wise until I got kicked out of my dad's house. And then I had money, like enough to be able to afford to pay for my own classes. So I was like 18 in a class full of all these like little girls. And it was the actually like the last year that I can attend that school because I was 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that.
And
I
then
have
I went in there and they were like, "Oh, you're actually like pretty good." Like I was good, but the technique just wasn't always there.
right, right.
Yeah.
I have a couple siblings and one of my siblings is a dancer and she had a similar experience. You know, my parents couldn't afford or didn't make it an affordable priority to be able to put her in like formal dance classes. And it wasn't until she was an adult that she was able to pay for some of her own. And it's like that's her passion. Like dance and movement is her love language. That's how she shows up and expresses herself. And there's something that I appreciate about a trained dancer who's self-taught because there's a certain grit that exists
Yeah.
there and a certain passion I think that you can't learn
Yeah.
necessarily. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's oh, you're like I feel like you like read my, but I feel like you're since you're a part of the LGBT community as well. Once again, we see things totally different than other people. And that's funny that you said that because my dance teacher used to tell me that all the time, and she used to use me as an example to all the girls because they were very like structured, ballet. And yes, their extensions were gorgeous, and I could never even come close to it.
Mhm.
How they let themselves go was not the same way that I did. And that's why, I was a good dancer because I let myself go and I put my passion in my dancing. And even when I messed up, I recovered like that. I was like one of those. I remember one time I slipped, but then I turned it into a split. Like I'm one of those people, I think fast on my feet, and it's just like the girls were never able to do so. So that was the one thing that like separated me from them because they've been in dance class their entire life where I was dancing, in my family room trying to figure it out,
Right, right, right. I think the LGBTQ plus community, we have a natural ability to turn mistakes into masterpieces in a way that nobody else can. That's
Yeah.
just something that y'all don't get. Sorry, rest of y'all.
Yeah.
So how about I know I've made an impact when
I know I've made an impact when people come back to me and tell me, you know, I I get so many messages and I try not to say this without getting emotional, but I get so many messages every day, not even from people that look like me, like that are gay or black, but just so many just women in general. Like my audience is actually 68% women on Instagram, and then on Pinterest, it's like 74%. So, and like LinkedIn, I don't know if LinkedIn has like those detailed insights, but basically my point is my audience are women.
women. Right,
And
right.
it makes me like so happy when I have so many of them come to me and say like how much I've given them confidence to just be who they are. And it's like most of them can't relate to me in any way, like they're like an older white woman. And but the thing is they see something in me that is so relatable, and I give them that comfort that nobody else is, because men can be a little toxic, and then other women sometimes they can butt heads. So it's like
Mhm.
for me, I'm like that happy medium for them.
Right,
And it's
right.
nice for them whenever they come back to me and they're like, you are so amazing. I just want to thank you so much for you just being you. So I would definitely say when people come back and tell me.
I love that. I love that. I love that. So before we close out, the last part of the podcast is we're going to do a little visualization. It's supposed to be fun, so hopefully it is. So we're going to close our eyes for a minute. We're going to take a deep breath in, and you're going to imagine yourself getting in a time machine, and we're going to go all the way back to your 16-year-old self. And as you step outside this time machine, the first person you see is you at 16. What is the first thing that you say?
I would definitely say that you are stunning. Yes, it feels lonely now. And yes, you're hiding a lot now. And yes, you are very confused, really. You will come to a point to where you will understand yourself fully more than anyone else does. And you will come to a point to where you realize that with the power of confidence, you can do absolutely anything. And trust me, honey, you do. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. So we're going to step back into the time machine, take another deep breath, and we're going to come all the way to the end. And we don't really know where that is, but I want you to think about What do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah, so I want to be remembered for just having an impact on people and showing people that you can really do and be everything. Because I plan on being one of the richest men to ever walk this planet. And, the only way that I can do that is empowering other people to be the best person that they can be and teaching other people how you can create success, because the only way to success is really creating a great community, and the only way to be able to create a great community is empowering those people to stand up for themselves and be better, know better, and do better. So I would definitely say that. Yeah.
I love that. All right, one more deep breath. We're going to come all the way back into the present moment, and then you can gently blink open your eyes and
And
be.
also another
Yeah, go
thing I
ahead.
just
Okay.
wanted to say to that
Yeah.
point too, is that for anybody that's watching, me saying that I want to be like the richest person in the world, the most wealthiest person in the world, isn't for the money, but people
Don't
have
come
to
asking
realize is that.
for a loan when I get
Exactly. Well, it's not for the money, it's for the
right.
impact. And without money, you can't do anything. You really cannot. Like, as much desire as I have to do something, or as much as I want to take on the world, or as much as I want to become the best person I am, I can't be any or do any of those things, unfortunately, without money. And I can't create a better life for other people without money. And it's so that's just the only reason, only thing I want to clear out, because I don't want
Yeah.
anybody to be like, oh, he greedy, honey.
Yeah, no,
No,
he's not trying to just build a space shuttle so he could go to the moon and come back, y'all. He's trying to make a
exactly.
change in the actual world. He said he wants to build a school for the creatives. Okay. So
Yeah.
don't come for him about wealthy. So
Exactly.
so the last thing I like to do is I work with this little oracle deck, and it's a super cute deck
Okay.
of cards. So I just want you to pick a number between 1 and 52.
1 and 52, 23.
23. Okay, so I love this deck because it's super fun and it has like these cute messages that come with it. So the message for number 23 is at your service. At your service. I have a feeling I already know exactly what this one means because I feel like I've seen it once or twice before. So, at your service, I hope it's comforting to know there is a big universal butler who is working behind the scenes, taking care of all the details, making sure every little thing is turning out exactly as planned. This butler is determined to make sure that you have everything that you need. So, all you have to do is let him carry the tray.
Mm, that's a good one. That's a really, really good one. And it's so crazy because the amount of people that I talk to, that because I'm very spiritual as well.
Mhm.
And it's so crazy how consistent the message is across the board.
Yeah.
And it lets me know that I'm on the right path, and sometimes I don't believe in myself, and sometimes I, you know, don't see the bigger picture. But then I always have to remind myself I do. And I've been seeing, 111 all over the place, 222, 333 all over the place. And what those numbers significant represent, evidently, is amazing for me. And it means that I have a lot of good things coming in my future. So I love that. I love that card.
You surely do. You surely do. And it's a reminder to know that
Everything happens for a reason.
everything happens for a reason. When your vision is clear, even if you don't necessarily know what the next step is, having a clear vision, having a big vision, and trusting the process, and also trusting that you will be provided for, that everything is being taken care of.
Yeah.
Man, that's the part that I think people miss the most. So I'm super
Yeah.
excited. But yeah, this has been such a pleasure, Nasir. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for just saying yes to being a part of this. I mean,
Of
I'm just super
course.
grateful for this conversation. I feel like I've been inspired, and I want to give you a chance to tell us a little bit more about how people can find you on social, how they can connect with you, and what you have coming up soon.
Yeah, most definitely. So you can find me on Instagram, well, actually all social media platforms at NASIR_JOACHIM. It's literally just my first underscore, my last name, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, yeah, all of the
All the
platforms. And
places.
tip for anybody that is, wanting to create their brand, that's how you really start with a brand, is being consistent on all platforms and making it easy for your audience or for your community to be able to find you. So follow me on all platforms, and I have a membership actually coming out pretty soon. And I also have a podcast as well. So I would love to bring you onto the podcast when I do release that. So I'm super excited. So follow me on all platforms and turn on those post notifications so you don't miss when this stuff does come out.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate you for being here. I hope that you have a fantastic Friday and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you. You as well.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.